Thanks for listening to our daily devotional. Lesson today is the three finger principle. Why are you doing that? Can you give me a Bible answer for the reasoning of your actions, your worship, how you become a Christian? Can you justify what you're doing in the moral realm in which you're delving? These are things that as children of God, we have to be involved in. Galatians 6 and verse 1, we try to restore people, bring them to a point of usefulness for God. Colossians, the third chapter, in verse 17, we apply that and we encourage them to examine themselves whether they are doing all things in the name of the Lord. I mean, on and on you go. Being a Christian means that we challenge others' beliefs and actions if they're wrong, encouraging them to the right as we seek to save their soul. But in our reading yesterday, we find that there can be a problem. If we apply one of the verses we read, 2 Corinthians 13 and verse 5, examine yourselves whether you be in the faith. You see, it's easy for me to look at others and to say, what are you doing? Why are you doing? And all the while, maybe thinking that I am justified in my life because I'm checking theirs out. But the reality is, another passage we looked at yesterday in Romans, the second chapter, we find there was an attitude amongst the Jews in that day and can be amongst us that we look and we boast about God, yet we ourselves are not examining and doing the things we ought. In Romans, the second chapter, in verse 17, he says, Behold, thou that art called a Jew and resteth in the law, makest thy boast of God, knowest his will, approvest the things that are more excellent, being instructed out of the law, and are confident that thou thyself art a guide of the blind, a light of them which are in darkness, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, which has the form of knowledge and the truth in the law. Thou therefore that teachest another, teachest thou not thyself? Thou that preachest a man should not steal, dost thou steal? Thou that sayest a man should not commit adultery, dost thou commit adultery? Thou that abhorrest idols, dost thou commit sacrilege? Thou makest thy boast the law, though thou breakest the law, dishonorest thou God? For the name of God is blasphemed amongst the Gentiles through you, as it is written, For circumcision verily profiteth, if you keep the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. You see, the Jews had this idea circumcision was so important, but they rejected other aspects of the law itself. They looked at things of God and decided those weren't really important, though God had said it just as sure as he had commanded circumcision to those under the Old Testament law. If we're not careful, we can fall prey to those very same ideas. We can condemn things in others while tragically setting aside matters in our own lives that we find in the new covenant that we somehow think, well, it's not that important. But while we're challenging others to examine themselves, to look to God's word, there's a principle that we also find in God's word that ought to help us. I call it the three finger principle. You look, and whenever I point at you, I got three pointing right back at me. I've heard preachers say that, teachers, others say it throughout the years. But the reality is, I look and I realize whenever I am teaching others, whenever I'm exhorting, whenever I'm encouraging, whenever I'm correcting, I need to realize, as pointed out in Romans, the second chapter and verse 11, God is not a respecter of persons. There is no respect of persons with God. I'm under the same law that I challenge others to put themselves, to submit themselves, to love God enough to keep. I need to be humble, examine myself, use the three finger principle, encourage, exhort, challenge others, but do it all the more so to self so that we can help others, not only in word, but an example. Thank you very much for listening, and you have a great day, and we will keep up with the three finger principle, examine self. Thank you again for joining us in this Bible study. We remind you, if you'd like to follow along in our daily Bible reading, the link below in the description of this video will give you the PDF so you can read right along with us. If you have any other questions or if you'd like information on a Bible study, contact us with the information provided on the screen before you.